Okay, so I've reached the point in my pregnancy journey where I get to go home from being in the hospital for 7 days. So I get to go home, and the first few days are rough. They are very, very rough. I thought I was going to end up back in the hospital. I was still very swollen. I was experiencing all kinds of these crazy symptoms, and it was just hard. It was really hard, and I'm still have the all the excess fluid, so I can't really do much. I get some sleep, I eat, I spend time with my family, and now it's time to see the specialist. It's only been about 3 or 4 days since I've left the hospital. We walk into the first specialist appointment, and he sits me down and he says, "Now, Mrs. Scott, we are experiencing something called idiopathic polyhydramnios with you. We have measured your fluid levels today, and they are still very high, so we do need to go about lowering those fluid levels. There are a few different ways we can go about doing that. Normally with polyhydramnios, when a pregnant woman comes in and she has all this excess fluid, there's either your baby has Down syndrome, spina bifida, or there's a blockage in the baby's trachea where it's not able to recycle that amniotic fluid correctly. Now you are testing and showing us that your baby is perfectly fine. He's normal. He's where he's supposed to be. But something in your body is making you have all of this excess fluid. And so we're going to call this idiopathic polyhydramnios, which means we don't know. We don't know what's causing it. So we have to address what's going on now, which is this excess fluid, because if we don't get your fluid levels down, you're going to end up right back in the hospital in labor in any time. Okay, he said, picture a dam, okay, and it springs a leak. You plug that leak, you plug the next one, it keeps springing leaks until finally the dam breaks and there's a flood. Okay, when you were in the hospital, I was expecting that, because that's what happens with women with polyhydramnios. When their water breaks, you have a flood of fluid, and I mean the floor beneath you knows, because there's so much. You flood it. You flood the place. That didn't happen with you, so we don't want that to happen with you. So there are 3 different ways we can go about doing this. I can hospitalize you, and I can monitor you and do something called amniocentesis. I don't know if that's how this is pronounced, but I think it is. And what that is we take a needle and we draw out amniotic fluid, and it lessens the amniotic fluid temporarily for about 24 to 48 hours. So we would have to hospitalize you, keep you monitored, and I am completely prepared to hospitalize you for weeks, if not months, to prolong your pregnancy as long as we can till we get a handle on things. Or in one other case that was very similar to yours, I had a pregnant woman who she had idiopathic polyhydramnios. She had 3 children. So her first baby, she came into the hospital just like you did at 27 weeks pregnant, full-on labor. She delivered her son, and he did not survive. We later found out that she had polyhydramnios, and that's why she went into the early labor. And even though her son didn't make it, we knew then that she had polyhydramnios. And it came on very quickly. Again, very similar to your case. Now, there are 2 other cases with the same woman. She got pregnant 2 more times. She was ready for this at this time. She knew, okay, I could have polyhydramnios with these next 2. I'm going to be prepared. So the next 2 pregnancies, she did have polyhydramnios. We caught it early. I put her on something called Indocin. Indocin is used to treat people with arthritis and swelling and pain like that. So what that does is it lessens the amniotic fluid levels pretty drastically, or at least it did in her case. We don't normally use this with pregnancies because it's not recommended, because it lessens the amniotic fluid levels so drastically, and normally if you were to lower the amniotic fluid levels in a pregnant woman, it would be very dangerous and a risk factor. But in your case and in her case, you had so much. So it lowered the amniotic fluid levels. Now, the thing is, I can start you on the Indocin, but we have to take you off of it between 31 and 32 weeks, because at that point, it's considered dangerous. It's considered very risky to continue usage, because what it does is it not only lowers the amniotic fluid levels, it redirects the blood flow in your baby's heart, okay? And that's fine at this point of development. But once your baby reached a 31 to 32 week of development, it needs that blood flow, that normal blood flow back in its heart so it can continue to develop, and there's no other disorders or things like that going to happen to your baby at that point, because it needs that blood flow. So that's what you would be making you aware of in case you want to do this. If you want to do this as well, you're going to have to sign all these papers and these waivers saying you're aware that it's more experimental and it's not really recommended, and that you are letting me, as your specialist, as your doctor now, take the reins and do what I think is medically necessary, because you want to deliver your baby, but you don't want to deliver him now. And he said, but when that happens, when you take the Indocin, once we reach 31 to 32 weeks, depending on how your results are, if it lowers your amniotic fluid levels and stuff, then we have to take you off. Your fluid levels will go up within 24 to 48 hours, and you will be delivering your son by 32 weeks. He will still be premature, but he'll be more developed, he'll be ready, and you'll be ready. And, okay. I was like, okay. I'm taking this information like, okay, we have a game plan, we have a chance at this. And he said, your baby is more likely to survive as well. 32 weeks on up, their survival rate goes way, way, way high. Right now, his survival rate is pretty low. Like, okay, well, let's do it. Let's do it. So he puts me on Indocin, and I still see my specialist. I see my specialist once a week, and I see my OBGYN once a week. Usually their appointments, one follows the other. So the specialist first, then the OBGYN, or vice versa, okay? And I am seeing the OBGYN that I saw in the beginning. There was a little hiccup in there after the hospital when I decided to go with a different doctor because I thought he would handle it better, and he was kind of like in cahoots with my specialist, but that ended up not being a good route. It was a bad decision. That doctor was not capable. I felt like it was just a bad decision, so I went back to my normal OBGYN. My appointments with him were very quick. I was like in and out because he just referred to the specialist's notes. He said everything's all right there. And my first time seeing him after being at the hospital all that time and with that for those 7 days, he almost seemed like he was embarrassed. And he seemed like now he was like, okay, I got this. I know what's going on. I'm not going to let this pregnancy get out of hand again. So he seemed to have a better grip on things because he was kind of forced to at this point. And for insurance reasons, he has to still see me and put it in my records and stuff that he saw me, measured this, that, blood pressure, all that stuff. So they're kind of in cahoots now, my specialist and my doctor. Between week 28 and a half, and week 31 and a half, I was taking this Indocin, and about 3 weeks in, I was lessening my dosage. So I lessened my dosage every day until I stopped it completely at 31 and a half weeks, and we had planned for that. In that time frame, me and my husband were preparing our home, our family for the arrival of my son, premature, preparing mentally, spiritually, physically, all that stuff to have a baby as soon as I take myself off this Indocin. So, with that being said, they're still doing the second level ultrasounds. Now, I get about 24 to 27 of these second level ultrasounds with my whole pregnancy, and these ultrasounds are $5,000 to $10,000 a piece. That's not including all of the tests, the hospital stays, all that stuff. That's not including all those. So you do the math: $5,000 to $10,000 a piece, and I get 24 to 27 of them for the whole pregnancy. It was crazy. But these ultrasounds, let me show you this. This is one of them. This is with the you can do it black and white or with the color. You see his little thumbs up? That was at some point in there with being on the Indocin. That was one of the ultrasounds we got, and it was almost funny to me because he was giving the ultrasound tech the thumbs up, I'm good in here. We're all good. I'm still swimming around. So that was kind of funny to see that, because it was encouraging to see that, okay, he's all right. He's giving us the thumbs up. So with that all being said, the Indocin did work. After 2 weeks of being on the Indocin, it finally started to lessen the amniotic fluid levels. I finally got to a normal level, and I was staying at that normal level up until week 30 and week 31. I was at a normal level. They take me off the Indocin. I go to see my specialist. He measures the amniotic fluid levels, expecting to see a dramatic increase, and there was nothing. It was normal still. He said, okay, well, we'll see you in 4 more days, and we'll check this fluid level because we got to keep a close monitor eye on it because these fluid levels go right back up and they go up really quickly. At least from my experience, and I've been doing this for 50 plus years. Okay, so I come back into my next appointment and the fluid levels are still normal. They haven't gone up any, maybe like a little bit, but not much. They're still normal. He says, okay, I'm about 35 weeks pregnant at this point. He says, okay, Mrs. Scott, I have stopped trying to figure you out. Every time that I think that I know what's going on with your body, or I don't know what's going to come out of your body, what's going to happen with this pregnancy, I'm proven wrong. Your body does the total opposite. He says, so this is, I will tell you, the very first time that I've ever seen or experienced, and I am working with other specialists and other doctors. We have meetings about your pregnancy and about how to go about doing this. And I am not only in Indiana, I'm in Illinois, I'm here, I'm there, and we don't know. We can't grasp what's going on with your pregnancy. All we know is that it's a success. The Indocin worked. Your fluid levels are normal and they're staying normal. Your body's not acting badly at this point. But you are cured of polyhydramnios. You don't have that anymore. Now, that being said, you still have to see me until your baby is born, because I still have to measure these fluid levels. I have to keep an eye on you, just because I think that's the safe route to go. With the way your pregnancy has gone all up until this point, things happen and they happen really quickly, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Like, things don't get out of control and out of our grasp of helping you. So we're just going to continue to see you, but you're cured of polyhydramnios. You're considered a normal pregnancy at this point. Like, okay. Hearing this from the specialist who has been treating me and who has had all this experience was really like emotional for me. And I sat there, and the whole time I was thinking, I said, I serve an amazing God. Okay? He, at that point in my pregnancy when I was in the hospital, and he wrapped his arms around me, okay? The Lord let me know everything was going to be okay. That feeling of knowing everything was going to be okay never left my side. It never left me. Up until when my son was born, I was holding him in my arms. It never left me. And I serve an amazing, miracle, wonder-working God, and he stepped into this pregnancy, and he said, nope, it's going this way, and it is amazing, okay? So that was another yet a miracle. I'm cured of polyhydramnios, okay? And it's been a roller coaster of a pregnancy so far. I'm about 35 weeks pregnant. Indocin worked. I'm off Indocin now. I'm still seeing every doctor, everything like that. And the specialist is stunned. He says, now, Mrs. Scott, I'm going to be writing a book when I retire, which is going to be in a few years now. I've been doing this for over 50 years. I'm well into my 70s. He said, and you're going to be in it, your story. It's going to be about high-risk pregnancies, about things I've experienced, things I would recommend, and my story of being a specialist all these years. And your story is going to be in it because it's the first one I've ever heard about and that I've ever experienced. Your exact story. Like, polyhydramnios is one thing. You had idiopathic polyhydramnios. Okay, I've heard of that. But then you have the Indocin, and your fluid levels don't go back up. This is the first time. And he said, I would really advise you to tell your story. Whether you write a book, you make videos on it, you tell your neighbor. Tell people about your story, because it will encourage them. Because as you know, there's little to no information about it, because I'm sure you've gone home and done your research and you can't find anything, right? It's just a guessing game. It's a waiting game. So go out and tell people, because I'm going to do the same. And I said, okay, I'll be sure to do that. And that's what these videos are for. And there's going to be many more videos on it, because I still feel like more people need to know. And I've already been able to reach so many people through these videos, and it's been amazing. And just telling my story to other pregnant people I meet randomly. But aside from that, I make it to 35 weeks. Now it is time to see my OBGYN. I'm kind of more focused on those appointments, and I go in to see him. And he tells me that he's going on vacation with his family in a couple of weeks. So during my between week 37 and week 38, or 38 and a half, he's going to be on vacation and he won't be there. So he said, please just hold your baby in if you can. I know this pregnancy's been crazy, so why not just ask for another miracle? He said, hold that baby in, because I know you want me to be here to deliver your baby. And don't worry, if you do go into labor, you just come into this hospital, you will deliver a wonderful baby. I'm sure of that. You'll see good doctors. He said, and they're going to be aware of how crazy your pregnancy has been, all the things that have happened. So don't fret on it too much. I'll be back in a week, and hopefully you still got that baby in there. Like, okay. One thing I have to point out is between week 34 and week 39, okay, I go to the hospital twice because I'm leaking fluid. I don't know what that fluid is, but while I'm there, one of the nurses ends up telling me, she worked at a Chicago hospital for many, many years with high-risk pregnancies, and she saw a lot of polyhydramnios with these women. And she informed me that a lot of the times, people who had polyhydramnios they have pockets, little bubbles of amniotic fluid. And those can pop at any time with all the pressure and all the baby growing and developing. And that is you leaking amniotic fluid, but it's not your main sac around your baby, the amniotic fluid sacs around your baby popping or bursting. But it can be a little bit of a scare because it's little pockets of amniotic fluid bursting and you're leaking, you test positive, things like that. She said, but being you don't have polyhydramnios anymore, you're leaking. I'm not sure, but it's not amniotic fluid from what we're testing. Like, okay, that's another little scare, you know. I'm still feeling like, okay, I'm ready to give birth. I'm huge at this point. I'm 30, you know, my late trimesters. So 39 weeks come, I make it. I make it to 39 weeks, and at this point I'm swelling. I feel like something's brewing. I don't feel quite right, okay? I'm swelling. I feel like I'm just, something's not right, okay? That feeling again is coming around. Going to my doctor's appointment, and I'm very dizzy. My blood pressure is sky high, and normally it's really low, so I get like real dizzy and like faintish when my blood pressure gets up and my heart rate goes up. So I go in and I make him aware. I'm like, look, I don't feel right. I feel like dizzy. I feel like something's not right. Very swollen. He checks my ankles. He presses on my ankles and it stays indented for about like 30 seconds. And he goes, yeah, okay. Your blood pressure is pretty high. You're contracting. So I'm going to call the specialist. He calls the specialist. Now, granted, I have a specialist appointment after this. I'm supposed to go see him again. So he goes and calls the specialist, and he comes back in the room. He goes, now, Mrs. Scott, being that you had polyhydramnios, you're cured of that, you're considered a normal pregnancy, but being you had polyhydramnios, your pregnancy has been very unpredictable, up and downs. The ball's in my court. It is up to me. It's my decision. If you want to be induced today, I can do that for you. Do you want to deliver your son today? I look at my husband and I am so ready. I'm so ready. I'm so full of emotions. This whole pregnancy has been so crazy. It was like the longest pregnancy of my life. Okay. And look at my husband. He looks at me and we're like, yeah, let's do it. Can you do that today? Because I feel like something's brewing. He said, Mrs. Scott, I feel like something is brewing too. I feel like your body's about to do something, and we want to stop it from acting up. Okay. We want to stop the tantrum before it happens. So go home, eat a good hearty meal, and come back here in a couple hours with your stuff, and we're going to start this induction process, okay? So next story will be my story of my induction, the whole labor story, all of that, and that has some miracles thrown in there too, and some unexpected things. But you know what? It's a good story, and it is a miracle, another miracle. So I will see you on the next video. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope this touches your life and you maybe learn a few things.